All right. So what are we talking about today?
We are talking about being a small business owner and kind of all the things that come with that. So balancing your business and your personal life, and then my favorite topic in the whole wide world, small business burnout.
Yeah, I don't have any of that.
No, you don't.
No. But if anybody wants to buy a home inspection company, though,
it is always for sale.
Sid's got one.
Yeah,
I'm open for negotiations. Yeah,
for sale.
Yeah, I think the burnout thing's a real thing, and we talked about this earlier today before you got here. When I was talking to LaToya, and I saw something the other day. A local real estate coach posted that he's been talking to some agents, and there's a feeling of burnout with the agents, and it's not, these are producing agents. These aren't agents that are burnt out and not making money. These are agents that are making money and are burnt out and unfulfilled, quote unquote. And I think one of the things that hit me right away when I saw that post, and I almost responded, but I didn't, because then somebody would respond and I'd have to respond. I don't want to do all that.
Can't be bothered.
Yeah, can't people, right?
No.
But I think one of the biggest problems in real estate is that nobody sets boundaries, right?
No.
It's 24/7, and it's a grind. And a lot of agents or business owners in general, they put the grind up on a pedestal.
Yes.
It's a badge of honor. That we're hustling and grinding and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's a burnout. And I think one of the things that benefited me the most was when I started setting boundaries and I started trying to normalize the business hours, right? It's not 100%, but for the most part, it's getting to people to realize, like, hey, this is a Monday through Friday, kind of a 9-to-5 operation
For you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we have systems in place, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, the voicemail says if this is after hours, go to our website, or send an email, and whatnot. And that's really been helpful in reversing or helping relieving some of that burnout, because you don't need to talk to me at 9:00 on Saturday night.
Yes.
There's nothing there and you shouldn't be talking to anybody at 9:00 on Saturday night. There's
Right.
nothing that pressing. Like one in like every 100 transactions is something want to pop up that's pressing like that.
Yeah. I do think it 100%. I think that it is glorified. This idea of like being busy is somehow makes you more important or valuable or like just never stopping. And I really hate that and have learned to resent it over time throughout my career. But at the same time, where my position is, like, I can't say it's Monday through Friday. Like, that would never work.
Yeah, but as a realtor, though, it's understanding that it's evening showings and it's weekend open houses and showings like that, but it's still adjusting your week to offset that. It still doesn't need to be 7 days a week.
Right. And that was something that I did have to learn probably a few years into my career, where it was like, if I wanted a weekend, if I wanted downtime at all, I had to schedule that because it's not guaranteed to me on a Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
And so it was knowing, like, when it's busy, my Saturday and Sunday probably has to look like a Monday, Tuesday, or like figuring out when I could have a Saturday type day. Like for me, that was yesterday because I worked all weekend. And it was my only option. And it was like, I need a day off. Like, I do deserve that. I deserve one day to go get my oil changed and get my highlights and breathe and hang out with my kids.
Yes.
Like, that would be great. Like, I did laundry. Like, and it's realizing that you do have to set those boundaries, but it is extremely tough when you're a small business owner. It
is. And we still get, of course, in the beginning, and we talked about before, in the beginning, it is 24/7 trying to get the business up. You don't want to say no to business and all those things. Yeah. But at some point you got to take back your time.
Yeah.
So, there was a time that we would do 4 p.m., 5 p.m. inspections on a Wednesday or whatever. And we're not doing that anymore. And the main reason is when you're as busy as we are, it sucks getting home at 8, 9 o'clock, having a report to do, and then turn around at 8 o'clock and have to do another inspection in 100-degree heat.
Yep.
You know, and it's and you don't get to spend any time with your families or anything like that, and it's just that, and that compounds the burnout feeling.
Yes.
So that's when, as an agent, you know, again, you know, the whole saying, you know, do you run a business or does the business run you? And the same thing with the clients, right? Are you in charge or in control of your clients, or are they running you?
Yeah.
Because you're the one getting paid, right? You're the one commanding whatever it is that you know, whether it's a set fee or a percentage or whatever it is, you're the one that's commanding that. So you need to be setting the rules and saying, hey, look, I understand you don't get off work till 5 o'clock, but that's my family time. You know, that's the inspector's family time. That's whoever's family time, you know, and on a Wednesday afternoon or evening or whatever. So we need to get this done during normal hours, right? Because you work normal hours, right? To the client, you know, this is what we do as well.
Yeah. I will say it's one of the things that is very, very difficult, especially for me to do. And I have gotten to the point in my career now, though, where I set those expectations from the beginning, and I tell people, look, like, you're going to contact me after hours, and I probably will need to contact you after hours at times. But I do let people know, first of all, I'm a grandma. Like, I go to bed so early because I wake up early. And so I tell them, like, if you are texting me at 9 o'clock at night because you just need to get it off your brain, that's fine, but don't expect a response from me until the morning.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you text me between, 6 to 8 o'clock and I don't get back to you right away, it's probably because, like, I'm making lunches and I'm making dinner and I'm doing homework with my kids, or I'm at soccer practice. Yeah. Like, that is the reality of my life when I leave work. And so I will do my best to get back to you in a timely manner, but it may not be right away. Yeah. And I'm curious, when you started implementing these practices of saying, all right, we're not going to do inspections at 4 or 5 o'clock, what happened? What was the response when you took that away? Was there any sort of hit to you, or were people just like, oh, okay?
For the most part, 90% of the time, it's okay.
Okay.
And that's what's fascinating, right? We sometimes get those requests, like, it has to be a Saturday. It has to be today, right? It has to be whatever. And then I'm always like, I say no, see what happens. And tell them our next available is this day. And I'll look on the calendar later and it's booked. So you didn't need it at 6 o'clock at night. You just wanted it. But we can do it at Monday at 1, So for the most part, they're like, okay. And then they schedule when we tell them we're available. And that other 10% is probably even less than 10%, to be honest with you. It's whatever extenuating circumstances, or again, it's the client running the show.
Yeah.
And they find somebody who's willing to do that, and that's fine.
Right.
If that's what you got to do. But at the end of the day, it's, are you at a place in your business that where you can
right. Have you earned that luxury?
Yeah. Where you don't have to worry about it anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, all right, I may be losing out on this one, but there's going to be another one take its place.
Yeah. And I do think that there does need to be this consciousness, and you need to be watching your business enough and understanding where you're at so that if you can take that luxury of saying no. Because I do think there are some agents who are just starting out, and like we talked about before, it is a luxury that's earned after you've built a business to be able to pull back. But there's some time that goes into that, and some work that goes into getting to that point.
Oh yeah.
And it's a price that you have to be willing to pay as a business owner. And if you're not, like, you don't get to be brand new, baby, and be like, I don't want to do that. Like, I have business hours. It's like, no, you don't. Shut up.
It was a solid 2 years of 7 days a week for me. Yep. Right. And
I agree with that.
And even after that, when after I hired Gordon and I merged MPI, there was still pretty much a 7 day a week thing. As we try to get systems in place and growing and doing all that stuff, right? Trying to go out and do the marketing, because at the end of the day, is replacing inspections with marketing and networking and office work and stuff like that. Now, are there still times that I work on email blast and CRMs and stuff like that on a Sunday? Yes, right. But sitting in front of a TV with a computer
is a lot different.
Is a lot different than out there in crawl spaces and interacting and stuff like that, Or there's still times I have to go do a Saturday, VHDA class, or, we got a thing coming up in a couple weeks at a brokerage. They're doing like a little Saturday family thing,
Cool.
Sure, but is that really, again, it's different than being out in the crawl spaces and doing the hard stuff.
I think that that's good advice, because I do think when you start to kind of pull back or adjust your schedule or your boundaries within your business, then you get to a place of deciding what you're okay with and figuring out like, okay, I'm definitely not doing this during these hours, but I am willing to bend here, because the reality is it has to get done.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
There's still stuff to always be working on.
Yeah.
And that doesn't go away.
And that's where, like, I can, for the most part, I have a pretty good ability to shut it off after a certain time. Like, if I get home at 5 o'clock and say I'm not doing anything after 5, I can do that. For a realtor, a lot of your conversations with your clients happen in the evening times when they're home from work and whatnot. But that also, where are you making that time up at?
Yep.
There's this misconception that if you don't get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and get your work in, then you're going to fail. But if you're up till 10 o'clock at night and you're getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, because that's where people say to do, then that doesn't make sense. You want to get burnout.
Yes.
There are people just as successful starting their day at 10 and 11 o'clock as there are starting at 4 o'clock.
And this
so
is
you have to balance it out.
Yes, this is my issue with the hustle culture. Like, it did take me a while to be like, I would say, not even be dramatic, I'm truly disgusted by this culture that we have like we've created, and these expectations that we put on people. Especially if I had $1 for every time somebody calls me a boss babe, like, it makes my skin crawl.
Yeah.
Every time. Like, what a dumb thing to say, first of all. And also, why do we never say this to men? And also, I don't want to be a boss babe. Like, I want to live my life. I want to enjoy my life. I want to be with my family. I want to make enough money to enjoy my life. And that's it. I don't want to be a boss babe.
Yeah, we don't work just to work. We work because we want to do these things, right?
Yes.
I want to be able to, like, this weekend is Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
This is coming out way after that. But, my son has his first travel soccer tournament, right? And Friday night, Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, we're going to be at the soccer field doing the soccer thing. And I don't work just so I can miss that.
Right.
I work so I can do that. And this whole argument of well, you can work and provide for your kids and they see you work hard. No, they're going to see that you were never there. They're going to see that you didn't provide the physical presence in their life,
Yeah.
Now, if you have to work to pay the bills and that's how it is,
Yeah.
right? Because, again, I went 2 years of building a business of doing that. I'm missing a lot of things. But those seasons go by fast when you have kids. And it's just, in my opinion, it's not worth working 7 days a week and missing all that if you don't have to.
Yeah. Every time I get the opportunity to have a broker or brokerage reach out to me and ask for a meeting, I always take it every time, because why wouldn't I? Like, there's a lot to be learned from those conversations and to see how other people do things and to hear their history. But I was sitting down with a broker here locally, and he was like, Mandy, I've seen your numbers. And like, if you just really buckle down, like, you could triple these. Yeah. And I just smiled at him and I said, you've got the wrong girl. I said, I don't want that. Yeah. I said, the cost of tripling my income is too great for me.
Yeah.
I said it would cost me the ability to go to dinner with my girlfriends, the ability to be home, my health, my sleep schedule, the ability to be with my kids or to be at their soccer games or to be the one to pick them up from school. Like, that cost is too high. It's too expensive for me to make that kind of money at this point.
And I had an agent, this is a while ago, my top high producing agent. That's what she did. And her kids legit asked her, like, hey, you're working all the time. Like, you're never here. You're never any of our stuff. They notice. And she said, yeah, but do you like all this stuff? And at the end of the day, of course, the kids were like, yeah, well, we like, this is a nice house and toys and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, that's not what they want.
No, and that's not what they'll remember.
No,
they're going to remember you were gone.
If you just think about a Christmas gift you get a kid, how long does it last?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, by the time they go back to school, they're done with it.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, you can do that. And that's awesome.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you can make the money tomorrow. You know?
Yeah.
Because there's the other argument is, oh, well, we're building generational wealth. That's cool. But the money will be there tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
If you're good at what you do, the money will be there tomorrow.
And you may not be.
Yeah. Yeah. And your kids may not be.
Yeah.
You know, because you turn around, they've graduated and moved on.
Well, and my thing is too, I think about this. I was talking to one of my girlfriends about it, and then I was talking with actually some coworkers about it. This idea of generational wealth, right? Like, we put so much pressure on building generational wealth.
Yes.
And my question is, do we actually think it serves our kids to create wealth for them? Because, like, you and I have similar backgrounds, right? Yeah. Nobody handed us anything.
Nope.
Like, there's no inheritance waiting for me. My parents didn't pay for my college education because they couldn't, and that's okay. But, like, I worked my butt off to build what I've built, and I am so grateful for that because I have many, many friends who had the opposite. Their parents paid for everything. Their parents still pay for stuff. Their parents put the down payment on their house. Their parents are giving them significant amount of money, like whatever it is. And I look at them and I see and I hear from them a lot of times a severe lack of confidence.
Yeah.
Because they know it was handed to them. They didn't earn it. And then they have this like internal battle of just a complete lack of confidence or feeling really good about themselves. And I just wonder, is that actually are we serving our kids the best if we're so focused on giving them everything instead of showing them like, you're capable of doing this. I will create an environment to show you how capable you really are.
Yeah, and there's also the cycle, right? So grandpa worked hard, created generational wealth, right? Mm-hmm. His kids, which would be my parents, this isn't my actual life.
Right.
You know,
what a bummer for you.
I know, right? They see the hard work, they continue that legacy, right? Mm-hmm. But their kids, which would be me, doesn't see it.
No.
And then I take it for granted. And then, you know, lack of better words, I start to piss it away. And then my kids have less, and it, you know, to the point where that generational wealth is gone in a couple of generations, right? Because once you start getting that stuff handed to you, you know, unless you're, you know, a Kennedy or a Rockefeller or somebody like that, J.P. Morgan,
that's crazy.
That's usually how it goes, right? Because if you work hard or your kids see you work hard for it, there's more appreciation for it because you know how hard it is to get. And the further away you get from that, the more you take advantage of it, and then it slowly disappears.
Yep. And I worked with an investor client once where his whole mission was to build this portfolio for his children, right? Do you know what they did the second that guy died? Every last one of them was sold off. Every last one of them. They don't want your doors. They don't care.
They don't.
They don't want that. They don't want to manage 200 properties. They don't care. They're like, okay, thanks, bye.
And so many people with building businesses, they're like, oh, I'm gonna
build it.
They're
like, I'm building this for my kids, and your kids are like, yo, I don't want that. You never even asked me if I wanted that.
I want to go be a vet.
And I wonder that. How many of us, is it like our ego that we're like, I'm building generational wealth. I'm doing this for like legacy. And it's like, did you ask them if they want that? And is it actually good for them to hand this over?
It's 100% ego. Just like
let's be real about it.
Just like some of these parents and coaches of youth sports that get 10-year-olds yelling at them.
It's like, your glory, right?
You're reliving your glory days or the glory days you never had through your kids' 10-year-old softball league or flag football league or whatever it is, volleyball. You're taking it way more seriously than they are. When my daughter plays softball and they you see some of these coaches. It's she's 10U, but even at 8U, and it's like, dude, man, you're like, what she says when we get in the car. Where are we going to go get ice cream? She could care less if they won or lost. By the time we get home, guess what? She doesn't even remember who won or lost because she didn't care.
They don't.
My favorite is like the T-ball where you have like all these like 4 3-year-olds out there on the field, and the ball and they all like everyone goes after the ball. So you have like first base going all the way over to third base. You have a kid that's sitting down like throwing his hat up in the air, and like it's
the best. They're doing what they should.
Exactly.
It's so fun.
Exactly.
But the parents who like lose their marbles over it, I'm like, come on. Yeah. Like they're 5 years old. Let them play with the butterfly. It's fine.
And then when the kids doesn't want to play, well, it's because of the league. The league messed them up.
I know.
Okay, yeah.
This is how I know this to be true too, is because when I built it up big enough and started the actual like Whitlock Real Estate Solutions umbrella, right? I turned to my daughter and I was like, look, like, this is cool. Like, do you want to like keep this up later on? And she goes, no. And I said, wait, like you don't want to like work for the company and like keep it going? Like, do you want to do real estate when you get older? And she goes, no. I'm like, all right, fair enough. But I wonder how many people actually ask their kids throughout, do you care? Like, because it's your dream, right? Like it's what you built. Yeah. But to what cost? And like, why are we sitting there being like, it's for my legacy? Yeah. Whereas like your legacy doesn't give a crap. Like they don't care.
Movie Varsity Blues. Playing West Caden was your dream. Yeah. I don't want your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think if you just take a step back and reevaluate everything that you're doing, and why you're doing it. Yeah. And have that real conversation. I've often said it's easy to look in the mirror and tell yourself all the things you're good at and all the things that are right. You know, it's really easy to do that, but it's really hard to look in the mirror and be like, you know what, I'm not good at this, or maybe this isn't the best idea. Maybe I am putting too much pressure to do all this. You know, so if we just took a step back and say, you know, why am I really doing this? Is it because I'm new and I'm struggling and I got bills to pay? Or is it just because that's what we've created as normal for this? And now I'm burnt out. I don't need the money. I don't need all these clients. I don't need all this extra stuff, but I'm still doing it.
That was something that I learned about 3 years into my career, where it was like a complete come to Jesus with me and my mentor, because especially in my industry, I think there's always this like more mentality. Any sort of sales position or small business, like it's like, okay, great, you hit these numbers. When are you going to do this or like to keep pushing? And I really had to step back and realize, like, where's the balance? Like, what is it that I want? How much money do I actually want to make and not keep pushing for more? Like, this is my advice to rookies, is like, figure out what are your goals? What do you actually want to do? And evaluate that every year. But you don't have to, like, it's okay to get off this hamster wheel of like chasing more and more and more, because at what point are you satisfied? Like, what is it? $700,000 a year? Is it $400,000 a year? Is it 100? Like, where's the like cutoff point?
Yeah, I have a buddy, and no one really knows what he does, right? I call him the shadow mayor of DuKent. But he's an investor, though. You know, I mean, that's part of what he does, among other things. And he told me, he says, you know, when the market crashed in 2008, you know, that's when he bought
a big dip.
Yeah, big dip. That's when he bought a lot of real estate, right? Investment properties and whatnot. But someone asked him, like, hey, how many doors do you want? He said, I don't know, I think about 20. And the guy said, why? And Matt was like, I don't know. You know, like, I don't know. He says, you know, because that's a lot to manage. It's a lot to maintain, a lot to keep up with, a lot of work to do. And he's like, are you happy with what you make off 10? And he's like, yeah. Why do you need 20? And he's like, I guess I do. You know, but it was just this thought process because someone told him, you know, you need this many you know, to be successful, right? And that's, I think that's one of the big things is we're told that you have to do certain things or reach certain points or close this many deals, this many inspections, open this many businesses, whatever, in order to be considered successful. You know, your bank account has to look like this to be successful. And that's not always true.
No, I don't think it's ever true. Like, I think that's where this is kind of my crusade in any sort of mentoring that I do in the future, or teaching, is helping people understand that the only measure of success is, as cheesy as it sounds, it's you. Like nobody else gets to decide at what point you're successful or what that looks like for you. And there was a quote that I read that hits home with this. It's like, how many goals have you already accomplished that you swore would make you happy?
Yeah.
And when I read that the first time, I was like, oh crap. Like, how many points in my life have I accomplished X, Y, or Z and thinking that it was going to be the thing that made me happy or satisfied or whatever? How many times do we, you want that new car, you want that new house, or you want to take this trip, and then it's over, and then what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you see so many people, again, we're going back to just chasing what they think that success is. When COVID was going on and the rates were low and, the money was just flowing in real estate, got asked, well, you go buy a bigger house? Wow.
Yep.
And you saw so many agents, so many people in the industry, lenders, inspectors, whatever, rolling up in new cars and new houses. And it's like,
you still see that a lot.
yeah, you still do.
I mean, I think that's going to be.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like when I see a newer agent pull up in a BMW or Mercedes.
Every time I'm like, oh
and
no,
their big
baby girl,
I'm like,
you
oh.
messed up. I'm going to tell you right now, you messed up.
I see you got the realtor starter kit.
Yeah.
so you looked the part.
Yeah, don't do that.
But that's what the image of success, that's what they were told success looks like. I mean, is there a place for that? Yeah. I mean, if your goal is to be in luxury real estate, you can't be rolling up in like a 97, Chevy Lumina, right? Doesn't mean you have to come in, with a $120,000 car.
No.
But there is a part to look, but that's not the everyday average agent.
No, and
I
would rather see you invest in your education and your training to be qualified to take on that caliber of a transaction.
Yes.
Than to see you go lease a car to make yourself feel special. Like
So
that's probably not the move.
Yeah.
And I do wish, on the topic of small business, I wish that there was small business finance classes where we talk about this concept of like, you have to be incredibly frugal and very, very careful when you are building a business. And even when you're trying to maintain a business, you cannot go out there spending all this money and acting fancy whenever the times are good, because it's going to ebb and flow.
And then complain because you don't have money for marketing.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I can't do all this marketing stuff because, business is slow and I don't have the money. When you have $3,000 worth of payments sitting in your driveway and house and everything else because you spend all the money there.
Yes.
So
I agree. And I think I wish that there was more education surrounding the budgets that are needed for your small business, because to me, I'm like, these are expenses are going to come up. Why are you not planning for them?
Well, that's also why just a lot of business come and go.
Yeah.
Right? And
because it's hard.
It's interesting. And I was thinking about this on my way here. Yeah, on my way here today, that because I was coming a different way because I was coming from Ashland, but saw I don't know, it's like Maple Street Biscuits down the street.
Oh yeah,
and nothing to do with them, but just you think about how many independent restaurants have popped up since COVID, right? Mm-hmm. And you can take that and think about how many businesses have popped up, period. Right, because the entry to a lot of these businesses is low now. So a lot of people say, you know what, I can just start my own electrical company. You know what, I can start my own bakery in my house, right? I don't need to work for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And while they may be the best baker in the entire world, if you don't understand finance and economics and business and planning and marketing and all that stuff, you're not going to go anywhere. Mm-hmm. And you're destined to go back to work for somebody else. It doesn't matter what your grind is, right? You can't out hustle just basic
or financial decisions.
Business knowledge and understanding. Mm-hmm. If you don't understand that when I hire an employee that I got to pay payroll tax, and like, you know what, I've done the calculations. I can pay you $45 an hour. You know, I know all my competition pays 20, but I can pay 45 because that's, and then after about 2 months, you realize you're running in the red. Why am I running in the red? Oh, taxes.
Oops.
Yeah. I've got to pay for all this other stuff
That's
too.
one thing that I don't think people understand is how much self-employment tax there is. Like when you're owning a business, you are taxed on top of tax on top of tax. Like it's not a small thing, right? We're not even talking about your overhead or your expenses in the business. We're talking about just the cost to do what you do in just that lane, right? And I think that that's where, unless you have run a business, people don't get it. Like they don't understand. They're like, why are you paid so much? And it's like, okay, like I'm so tempted to break down everything line by line of like, this is what shows up on the CD. Let's talk about what I actually net, right? Yeah. Like that actually goes towards my family, not just to keep this thing going, not just so I can keep doing what I do for you, for what actually comes into my account and stays there that I can buy toys with or food or gas or whatever. And because I do think it's a very common misconception that people just don't know. And then I think too, to your point of, okay, let's say we're building legacy for families. How many of them don't take the time you've built this business, right? And you want to pass it on to your children, but are you teaching your children how to keep running the business? Because how many of them fail brutally because they don't know how to run the business side of it. They know how to do the task. They know how to do what it is that company does, but they don't know how to run the business. Yeah. And then you'll crash and burn.
100%. 100%. And a lot of times you just turn it over to them.
Yep.
Right. They don't see all the work that goes into it.
Yeah. And they're like, well, you grew up in this business. It's like, they grew up doing it. They don't know how to run it. You did that.
Absolutely. So what are some of the things that you've done to try to curb the burnout?
This is truly, if I'm being honest, I think this is the thing that I will struggle with for the entirety of my career. I think just about every small business will struggle with this and having to kind of recenter over and over again. But a few of the things that I have really learned is to prioritize my health, to prioritize sleep, to prioritize my family, and to know what my limits are and what I'm okay doing and what I'm not okay doing. And those are really the only things that I think have made a difference that would help, because there's a lot that's outside of my control, unfortunately. I mean, I guess I could ask you the same thing, though, because you've been through it now for years, and you have grown. I mean, you guys have exploded. I know I text you every time I see like the referrals, and I will forever, because once you've created a small business, you know exactly what that feels like. I know that whether you admit it or not, deep down, when you see that, there's a part of you that's like, oh my God, like, whoa, and so I get so stoked for you when I see how much you guys have just grown so much, and how your referral source is so solid and steady, and how much people love your company and love you guys and love what you do. But I mean, that was quick. And so
it was.
I'm sure you've faced this a lot more would be my guess.
Yeah. I mean, we do, because I had a conversation with another home inspection company. They've been sending us some referrals lately, because I think they're down to one. Because I think their other inspector got hurt, and he's already, the one is working 7 days a week. And she's like, I just hate turning away business. Like, I get it. Yeah. But and it does suck, when someone calls and we're booked up, and I'm looking at my calendar, seeing, well, what appointments can I miss? What can I cancel or move to accommodate this? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how successful you are, you don't want to turn away business, especially if it's somebody that you've built a relationship with, right? You want to try to help them out as much as you can. Yeah. And that's where I still, from time to time, get myself in trouble. Like, I can do that Sunday afternoon, right? And I've said repeatedly, once I get to New Kent County on Saturday afternoon,
I'm done.
I don't leave until Monday morning, right? I don't leave the county until then, unless it's a family thing that we're doing, going someplace, doing something or whatever.
Yeah.
But it just goes back to, 12 years in the fire department. How many things did I miss because of that? Because of 24 hours turned into 72-hour shifts and the training and all that stuff. And then the first couple years of the same thing, of starting a business, right? We're still young kids. I've got another 8 years, right? My daughter just turned 10. So, of wanting to be there and do those things on a regular basis. So for me, it just really, you start getting into like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do 7 days a week. You got to set systems in place. One of the first things I told Courtney is I don't like saying no. So you say no for me.
That's
love
Courtney's
it.
job now.
I love
because it's so much easier to say no on behalf of somebody else than it is to be the one saying no when it's you. When they have the expectation of you versus someone else being like, no, he can't. That's so much easier.
So much. It's because then I can like blame somebody else without them,
Yeah.
Right.
Like I'm like, oh,
You
like we
soften
can't
the
do
blow.
that. Like, sorry, like Sid's schedule, he's completely booked up. He has nothing on the schedule. He's completely booked up. Like he doesn't really do inspections anymore. He's running the business. Like, but I have Gordon, I have Logan, I have Todd. Like,
and even when they text me after they've talked to Courtney, like, hey, because I get this, Courtney says that you're full. Is that true? There's already
That's true. We all know. We're like, Sidney's a
Right?
liar.
But the expectation's already been set, right?
Yeah.
Like my answer is probably going to be no, right?
Yeah.
Because she's already set that expectation.
Well, and you don't want to undermine the very thing that you asked her to do.
Exactly.
What's the point then? What's the point in asking her to do this for you if you're just going to go back on it?
Right.
Like, why'd you even ask her to do that then? What's the point?
So between that and again, just finally just trying to, in the last probably year, really trying to normalize something, right? Again, it's not perfect because this isn't an industry that you can do that in, every week, every day. But it's just trying to normalize like, hey, you can call me a Friday at 7 p.m. I'm not going to answer, right? The week is done. Like we're done. We've shut it down. You call me a Saturday morning and say, hey, can you do a walk and talk? No, I'm not leaving my house right now for that. But it's also getting to that comfort level of I'm letting business walk. And until you get into that mindset, like you're never going to be able to set those boundaries.
Yeah.
Because you can set them all day long, in your mind. Like, you know what? I'm not doing this. I'm going to go do this. I'm not taking any appointments. But if you're not okay letting money walk out, then you're never going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And you're constantly going to be struggling to burn out.
One of the things that you said that I really love that I think is super important is when you said, my daughter has about 8 years left, right? To figure that out. I think for me, I found a lot of comfort in understanding that I only have these kids. I'm on borrowed time as a parent. We all kind of are, right? Like hopefully they're going to be around forever and I'll have lots of time with them. But the reality is like they'll get to a point where they fly the nest and they live their own lives and they won't need me for everything. And like that can be my go time, right?
You'll see him at the holidays.
Yeah.
And
until
they get married and then he got split the holidays with the in-laws. Yeah.
And so, I talk to my mentor a lot about that and she's been very respectful of it. And even my boss and leadership, like they know right now, this is my time with my kids. Yeah. And these are my goals to support my family for right now. But when those kids are gone and when they don't care if I'm around or whatever, that's a completely different story. Yeah. But I do think it brings a lot of comfort of like, look, I'm turning away business now or I'm saying no now, but it's for a very good reason. Right. And it doesn't mean that it's always going to be that way. And I think that could be something that helps other small business owners is it's okay. It's okay to take a little bit of a loss now for a really big gain when it comes to your life or your family or the future or your relationships or whatever it is, your mental health, your actual health. Like, it's okay if my go time isn't right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's cliche, but at the end of the day, like, you can't buy back time.
No.
You know, it doesn't matter. You know, Steve Jobs, when he died, he couldn't buy any more time.
Nope.
You know, as rich as he is, you know, he couldn't buy another day. And it's the same thing with your kids, your family, whatnot. You can't get that time back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I said earlier, you can make money tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, you just can't get that time back. So you really gotta, again, if you're able to.
Yes.
You have to be in a position where you're able to.
And I think when you are in a position that you're able to, the thing that I just would love to harp on is when you are able to still be continuously very careful so that you're still in a position to be able to. But if I see a lot of people elevating their lifestyle as they're making more and more money, you're never going to feel like you're making more money then.
No, you're not.
You're never going to feel caught up. You're going to be in the same paycheck to paycheck struggling mindset. And I think the thing that I'm really grateful for is that nothing was handed to me. And so I did have to build it very carefully. And I'm aware that if I'm not smart, it can all go away. And then what? And so I never want to elevate to the point where it can all just vanish, right? Like, that sucks. Why'd you build it then?
Exactly.
Like, why put yourself through that?
Yeah. So I think, again, in closing, you just got to, once you get to that point, you have to be willing to let money walk away.
Yep.
You've got to set in systems. You've got to set expectations and boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to control your business.
Mm-hmm.
You can't let clients control it. Because once you get to burnout, you know, then what?
You're working backwards to try to
people
propel yourself forward again.
Yeah, people see it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're just not happy doing this anymore.
Yeah.
You know? And then what do? You know, you just keep doing it and being miserable. Do you find something else to do, or what? So
my question for you, though, one more question in closing, since yours is kind of different than mine, right? Like, my clients are my referral source. Like, that's where all of my business comes from, is from my relationships with them and trying my best to keep them happy and hoping that they support me and my family in this business that I built. But for you, yours is not only the clients, right? Like, you want the clients to have a good experience, but yours is your relationships with, like, people like me.
Yes.
And so I feel like that's even harder to some extent, because it's like, all right, like, how do you not let Mandy push the buttons, right? Like, how do you not? I mean, that's really tough after years of forming this relationship with someone. And then if I text you and I'm like, Sidney, I'm so sorry.
How do you not get hurt when Mandy doesn't respond to your text messages?
Well, this goes back to, you know,
I'm still learning that one.
Yeah, we fighting.
We'll work on it.
Yeah.
You'll learn.
Well, and it is hard because of the fact that, again, realtors don't have boundaries.
No,
right?
Because nobody gives us boundaries. So then we're like, what are boundaries? What are business hours? What are you talking about?
I've seen it on these mastermind groups where a realtor asks, what happens if your lender doesn't respond to you at 10 p.m. on Saturday?
Can I guess? Get a new lender.
Get a new lender.
That's what they
right?
said.
You know, because heaven forbid that lender might be sleeping or doing something with his family
How
or
dare
in the pool, right? You know? And I've seen that. Like,
because how many of us answer the phone while we're in the shower, or we're like approving authentisigns in the car?
And so you're setting those unreasonable expectations for everybody else because your profession has chosen not to set boundaries, right?
Let's go one step further, because you chose not to set boundaries.
Yes.
You feel like no one else should have boundaries.
Right? No one else should have.
You don't respect yourself enough to say no, so why should they?
So that's where it kind of gets, you know, like I said, when we try to set normal hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
Normalize the business. But when I say that it's impossible to do, it's because of those relationships, right?
It's because of the realtors.
Yeah. Well, not all the realtors. It's those realtors that I've done 50, 60, 70 inspections
My
for.
question is it your clients or is it the realtors who are pushing these boundaries?
It depends on the agent.
Okay.
I mean, 80% of the time it's the agent. Right?
Yeah.
It's the agent pushing the boundaries, right? But there's those ones that I know that if they're texting me on a Saturday, it's because they really need something, right? It's because they have that one client, right? That's just, it's not worth fighting. You just say, hey, they really need this. Can you do it? And so that's...
Do you charge more for that?
No, I should.
You should.
Some inspectors do. Some
you
inspectors
absolutely should.
Some inspectors charge more for weekend and afternoon.
I used to charge for house calls for hair.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't I?
Yeah. So that's why I say it's with realtors. It really, again, you have to be, part of it is you have to be okay knowing that money's going to walk away. If an agent texts me because they got my number from somebody else, and I don't have a relationship with that agent, and this may sound bad, but the answer is going to be no. Like, I'm not coming out on Sunday. I'm not answering you at 8:00 at night on a Tuesday.
Or make it a pain point, because it's like, hey, how serious are you? Do you really need it right this second? Because there's a fee for that, and we can make it happen.
Yeah. The other side of that is the agents that I have those relationships with. Yeah. When I say, hey, no, I've got my daughter's softball game, completely understanding.
Yeah.
Completely understanding. Like, okay, I'll try to talk to them into Monday, or Tuesday or whatever. But again, it goes back to those relationships. Yep. And there's a good agents. There's a good agents that understand because they have kids, they have family, and they've set those boundaries, and they've already prepped them like, hey, it may not happen. I'll ask, because you're relentless, but just so you know, it may not happen.
I do wish our industry would, and I think we are moving in this direction. I will say, in my 7 years of doing this full time, I do think we are moving in the direction of giving each other a little bit more grace and allowing people to be humans. Yeah. And I'm a big fan of that. And I would love to see more and more of that, of small business owners not putting this pressure of this ridiculous hustle culture of you should be answering my text at 10:30 at night. Come on. Yeah. And I hope that is coming in the future, just more and more of this freedom.
I had an agent, I left a class across the street here, Thursday night. It's a 90-minute class. And got in my car. I had 3 missed messages from the same phone calls from the same agent. And I called him, and he's like, man, he says, you're killing me. I'm like, okay. He says, I need to schedule an inspection. I was like, I was on the mats. I don't keep my phone on the mats. Yeah. It's Thursday night at 8 o'clock. Yes. And this isn't middle of the day.
Right.
I said, you can schedule online.
Right. It's not like you don't have options. You have an entire office with staff ready to help.
I didn't know that. I'm like, yeah, it's in my voicemail.
I didn't know. It's
you left
57 places,
but again, you have to be unapologetic about that too.
Yes.
Right?
You got to stand in that.
It's after hours, I don't sit by with the phone waiting to answer it.
Concept.
I know. So again, and some of it just takes time. It's practicing or hey, I'm not answering my phone at dinner, and actually doing that. It's leaving your phone in the car when you're doing certain things, whatever. So,
well, yeah, I laugh because I always have my phone face down. And it used to drive Preston insane. He'd be like, why is your phone face down all the time? Or, you see those reels where people are like, if their phone is face down, they're cheating. And I was like, no, if their phone is face down and they own a business, there's a reason that phone is face down.
Yes.
There is a reason every time that I don't pick up this phone and I don't want to see it lighting up until I'm through this. If I'm doing a lunch with someone or dinner or a class, there's a reason that phone is face down every time.
Yep.
You should be honored.
Yeah, I'm like, you're welcome. When do I have time to cheat?
Yeah. I'm putting my 100%. Phone down, face down, and I own a business.
Yes.
That means that you're important to me.
Yes, that's exactly why I do it. Is because it's it's going to be near me, but I want to give my attention to whatever I'm doing right now. And so, I think it is having that respect of yourself, right? Because I think it's really easy for us as business owners to be like, well, I'm with my family or I'm taking care of my kids or I'm at their soccer game. And that's okay. But when is it okay to just be like, nope, I'm having a 30-minute lunch by myself or I'm having a 30-minute lunch with a friend or whatever. I think that's where we get into trouble is you don't actually respect yourself and your sanity enough to set those boundaries because it's hard.
It is. 100%. Well, I think this was a good one.
Yeah, it's an important one. It's a tough one. I do think it's the thing I'll struggle with forever.
Forever and ever.
But it's important.
It is. Till next time.
Until then.